This is Dr. Pang, and I'm going to talk today about issue-centered education. In the curriculum area, one of the most important topics that I can cover is issue-centered or problem-based learning. Now, why are social issues and problem-based learning or issue-centered important? Well, because the roots of education lie in human issues and ways to develop and test our knowledge. This is something that we do every day. And we know that human knowledge changes over time and place. For example, in 1918, they didn't have a vaccine for the flu, and so 50 million people died. Thank, uh, thank goodness we today in 2020 are able to see the development of several vaccines for the coronavirus. So I want you to realize that schools are not just places about facts and memorization, but should focus on decision making. Students need decision making skills. For example, maybe the students are concerned about sexism in schools or gender bias. So a question that they could wrangle with it might be, what are the best ways to end sexism in school? There's no specific answer to that. What should be the organizing theme of curriculum? According to James Shaver, should it be historical knowledge? Should it be scientific knowledge? Should it be legal knowledge? No, he thinks it should be issue-centered education because it is key to guiding responsible, ethical, and active citizens in a democracy, since the United States is a democracy. And we believe in the values of equity, social justice, fair treatment, education, and the ability to participate in our society. Students should be mentored to address real-life dilemmas, problems, and issues in life. We all have to address these different problems we have almost on a daily basis. It could be as small as, what should I make for dinner for my children? What can I afford to make for my children for dinner? You see, um, there's a lot of different issues that we think about every day. So those issues can be personal, community, national, or global. Now, in this class, I use John Dewey as the foundation for my philosophy and how I develop curriculum, what I think, and what I teach. He said schools are laboratories of democracy. This is where children learn how to be a citizen in a democracy. So I have to think about, if I believe in John Dewey's work, what would relate to the students' lives? Why might a students be interested in an issue that I choose? One of the issues that I see a lot of children concerned about in schools is how to get people and students to act to eliminate bullying. This is a very difficult issue, and for some reason, it continues to be a continual and perennial problem in schools. Remember, what you think is interesting and something the students should consider may not be interesting to your students. Now, Jack Nelson, another professor, he believes that issues are difficult to deal with because they're complex and life is complex. For example, medical knowledge has expanded. A good example is the new vaccines that we're getting for the coronavirus. That has shown that the new technology and scientific information that people have worked on for years is now coming to fruition. Did you know that problem-based learning, which is very similar to issues-based education, it's really, they're the two the same, but in different disciplines. Problem-based learning came originally from the medical field. They wanted doctors to learn how to solve various medical problems, how to deal with problems of tuberculosis or heart disease or diabetes or whatever. But Jack Nelson also says not only has medical knowledge expanded, transportation has advanced. We have bullet trains, we have airplanes that can go past the speed of sound. And also now with technology and the internet, we have remote learning. That is a relatively new aspect of technology that is recent since the pandemic has struck the world. Also, there are different global democracies, and many different people from different countries collaborate and work together. So I also want to reinforce the importance of democracy. Democracy expects decision-making skills for the common good. This is very difficult, especially we live in such a diverse society. Different people have different goals. Now, values along with evidence. In making a decision, students have to look at their values. Shirley Engel was big on that. Complex issues need various solutions with review of consequences for each. Every solution that we choose has consequences. Usually in complex issues, no one choice may be exactly perfect. So let's take something that I know maybe you have had to deal with. If teachers spend 3 hours a day on reading, what happens to the teaching of social science, social studies, and the arts or PE? Is that the best for students? Why or why not? There are conflicting values when we think of that, right? So if a teacher has to do a block of 3 hours in the morning, let's say 9 to 12, and then the kids go to lunch 12 to 1, and then 1 to 3:30, there's really not that much time left for the other subjects. Is this the best for the students? Does it depend on grade level? Does it depend on where the school is located? Does it depend on the goals of the school? So it depends on your values here where things might conflict. That's why solving these issues are not necessarily easy. In decision-making skills, you will need to teach your students the difference between fake news and accurate news. Fake news, one of the good sites for that, if they're getting information from the internet, they should go to several reputable sites, is Snopes, snopes.com, where you can check to see sometimes if the information provided on a website is true. Students will need to know the difference between fact and opinion. That can be very hard to unpack too. Also, some people who are authorities, they seem to act or talk or speak as if what they say is true. Is it? We need to have our students look for evidence to understand if the validation of truth is really true. And then we all need to define the terms so that we know we're all starting at the same place and that we agree on our definitions. Now, the issue-centered education must focus on real life issues. If you want it to be relevant to your students, you want to pick something that's real life. For example, how should equity be addressed in schools? What do you do if you have a child who is always disciplined? There was a story in the Seattle newspaper about a child who was one of the very few black children in a school that was primarily attended by high income white students. And when he was disruptive, they put him in a cage. It looked like a cage anyway. It was part of the underneath a roof, but it had a fence, and they would lock him in there. Is that equity? Is that treating him well? Is that good discipline? He happened to be African American. He was one of the few students who continually were put in there. So the values, what we have as educators or as people, are at the core of many of our public issues. Learning knowledge is not enough because there's so much more to an issue than just facts. We need to know how to solve these issues. And as you know, using the Bloom's taxonomy, right? Oops, I went past it. You see on the Bloom's taxonomy there, often many teachers are just into the remembering, the recall, report, list, define, or describe, or understand, discuss, explain, identify, or summarize. But you want the students to also apply information, to interpret it, demonstrate, use information. They have to analyze it. Maybe they compare it with some other information they get to contrast what is it telling us. Can they distinguish fact from fiction and break the information into various parts? In evaluating, they must be able to support, judge, or hypothesize and critique the information. In that way, they can create or construct, formulate, invent, or design a plan to address a problem. So now I'm going to ask you, are you guiding your students to develop high quality decision making skills? What are you doing in your classroom? Are you able to do that? Have you thought about it? It is so inherent in our education system. Now, Jack Nelson talked about the importance of when you have issue centered education, it's usually interdisciplinary. It's not just based on psychology or history. The issues are not neat packages. War, that's political science, that's history, that could be science, biology, so many things, ethics. Hunger is another issue that we almost deal with, and how difficult it is to address it. On the pandemics, of course, it's about politics, it's about science, it's about humanities, all of it. So Jack Nelson says the need for knowledge from a variety of disciplines is imperative to solve these complex issues. So we can't just look at an issue from a humanities or social science orientation. We might need information from philosophy, economics, biology, ecology, ethics, legal, political science, law, women's studies, psychology, religion, or other areas. So James Shaver said we to have students look at public issues. Ethics are usually at their core, and how you frame the issue is critical in if students believe they should be addressed. There usually is a conflict in the values and in these issues, and they do need multiple perspectives. Often private issues can be used as a lead-in to a public issue, maybe affirmative action. For example, someone might say they didn't believe in affirmative action because they didn't think they got into a university because they were not a person of color, or they were not poor, or they didn't have enough points to get them in, which other people had, and they didn't think it was fair. So these private issues can help you get into the public issue. I want to end with issue-centered education. It's issues-based. It's real-life problems. It should be meaningful, engaging to students. Students should use higher-order thinking skills and consider various positions. Thank you.